Well, the DA is also laying charges against the former health MEC. In a statement, the DA shadow MEC says that Mahlangu should be charged with culpable homicide and with contraventions of the Mental Health Care Act and the National Health Act. The DA says that Mahlangu must face consequences for contraventions of the law. The party adds that the scale of the deaths and the negligence make this a medical marikana that requires accountability from the perpetrators and justice for the victims. Well, joining us on the phone line is Jack Bloom, the Gauteng DA spokesperson for health. Good morning, Jack. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, what are the charges that you will be laying against her?
Good morning. The DA is laying charges on 3 grounds. We've taken legal advice because we want these charges to be held up in court. Firstly, culpable homicide. Secondly, a contravention of the Mental Health Care Act, which could lead to a 6-month prison sentence. And thirdly, a contravention of the National Health Act. These are all very serious, and the reason we've done it is because typically politicians get off and the officials are the scapegoats. And in this instance, of course, it was Mahlangu who is primarily to blame. She drove the whole process and decided that the contract with Life Healthcare Sedimeni had to be terminated at all costs. We regard this as nothing less than a medical marikana in terms of the negligence involved and the high number of deaths. And there has to be political accountability and criminal accountability. So the MEC has resigned, but that can't be the end of the story. We hope that this does go to court and justice will prevail.
Now, Jack, do you believe that the buck stops with Mahlangu, or should more people be held accountable?
I think there's different levels of accountability. We do think that in terms of political accountability, the Premier of this province should himself resign. I think that would be appropriate in the circumstances. But in terms of legal culpability, I think primarily there are a number of senior officials in the Gauteng Health Department who must be disciplined and also criminal charges laid. And then also at the NGOs where all these deaths occurred. I mean, it's just unbelievable that the one NGO, there were 20 deaths. I mean, that's too shocking for words. I think the charges there could well be even more serious than the type of charges that we have laid. But look, we're waiting for the evidence of the inquests that are being conducted, and there's various post-mortem evidence to come forward as well. So look, it's got to be evidence-based. We have to go through due process. Everybody has their day in court, but it can be the situation where officials and others get punished through the courts, and the politician who started it all gets off scot-free.
Well, I know that you've mentioned that the NGOs should also be brought to book, but do you think it should go as far as even the medical practitioners who practiced at these unlicensed NGOs?
Well, you know, there's all levels of accountability. I noticed from the Health Ombudsman's report that there was one psychiatrist who resigned in protest. Now, that's the sort of thing we should have seen more of. So I think the Health Professions Council might be very busy as well. Were there medical practitioners who colluded with this and shouldn't in terms of medical ethics? Were there negligent nurses? There's a whole range of remedies for what has happened here. But I think no one should get off that is implicated, and we're starting with the person who's responsible for all this. Today I'm laying the charge at the Johannesburg Central Police Station. We will monitor the implementation of the investigation. I've done this because it's highly unlikely the provincial government would lay a charge against one of their own, to be honest. And I don't want to see the situation where it's just the scapegoats or the officials and everybody else involved. This was initiated by a high-level political head, and she was the one that must face the punishment.
And in terms of compensation, who do you think should be compensating the victims of these families?
Well, there is the issue of compensation. The Health Ombudsman has outlined a process of alternative dispute resolution, which we would support, because we don't want a situation like Marikana where it drags on forever and ever. I think we should assess the nature of the loss. Of course, money can never, ever compensate for the loss of a loved one, but there's funeral costs that can be paid, and pain and suffering, I think, must also enter into it. So the Health Ombudsman did recommend that a prominent individual in society, I would suggest Tuli Madonsela, for instance, that people trust, because people don't trust the provincial government, certainly don't trust the Gauteng Health Department, and that there is a mediator in this process so that there is a fair process of compensation and redress and a memorial, I think. I think there should be a memorial to the people who died, and this should never ever happen again, which would be the better memorial, that we fix up our health system so that people with mental health problems are treated with dignity.
Well, thank you so much for your time. That was Jack Bloom, the DA Gauteng spokesperson for their health department. Well, joining us again is ANC Youth League Deputy Chairperson Vuyo Maka. Thank you so much for returning on the line with us. Now, we spoke earlier on about the charges that the ANC Youth League will be laying against Mahlangu, and you mentioned that you think that she's solely responsible. Do you think other people should be brought also to book in addition to Mahlangu?
Hello.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone line. I was just asking, you mentioned earlier on the charges that the ANC Youth League will be laying against Dadani Mahlangu. Do you think that she's the only one who should be held responsible, or should more people be brought to book?
Well, obviously the reports do paint to the institutions like your NGOs and everyone else. But I think as the ANC Youth League, mainly we have to concentrate to the initiator of the program, and also to the owner of the program, which is the head of that particular department, which is Ms. Dadani Mahlangu. Hence, we're then really saying we're quite confused by the DA that says they don't trust the government to deal with one of their own. Actually, when that thing happened, we were the first organization to say, actually, resigning is not enough. We're going to go and lay a charge. And that's exactly what we did yesterday. I'm not sure what charge are they going to lay, because there's already a charge in the particular matter. So it's not about in one side are we taking. There's a particular crisis that has actually occurred. We think that the full mighty of the law must actually take its particular course, not just resigning.
Now, Vuyo, who should be compensating the victims' families? There's been no official announcement on that regard.
Obviously, she will have been obviously acting as part of the Gauteng government. So therefore, the Gauteng government must be the one who must compensate those particular victims, and they must be compensated.
Now, Vuyo, also the Gauteng Youth League has been accused of siding with the opposition parties against Premier David Makhura. What's your comment on that? Do you think David Makhura should step down?
Listen, I think what at that particular moment, we had a particular feeling of that particular nature because of the catastrophe. We're not really siding with anyone here. What has actually happened in South Africa, it has never happened before, in post-democracy at least. Now, it can't be that we think resigning, or you think that because the DA say that the DA said that the son comes from Mpumalanga, then we must refuse because they're in opposition. The fact of the matter has got nothing to do with the opposition. The fact of the matter is that 94 people are dead, irrespective of whoever comes from, as long as everyone acknowledges the depth of that thing. Then at least we are able to move on in unison as a country, rather than try to play some political game.
Thank you so much for your time. That was Vuyo Maka, the Gauteng ANC Deputy Chairperson, joining us there on the phone line, taking us through the charges that they've laid against former Health MEC Dadani Mahlangu.